Okay, so we'll cover subjects and I think we already covered subjects and observables, but we'll cover types of subjects available, and then we'll see one example. Okay, and after that we can go to the routing in Angular. Yeah, so we already saw subjects right yesterday. So subjects is basically to multicast data between components or services. So there are like 3-4 types of subjects available, which has a different usages in different scenarios. Okay, so the first one is the basic subject we already saw yesterday. You can create that subject uh, by just saying subject. Okay, the name itself is subject. But the other types are, the first one is behavior subject, and then we have a replay subject, and then we have async subject. Okay, so these 4 types we have. Now coming to behavior subject, the difference between the normal subject and the behavior subject is that normal subject will not have any default value, right? So if you go here and see the subject, we don't have any default value added, right? So we created an empty subject, and then we started sending data to that subject. But whereas the behavior subject, it has a provision for us to initialize it with some value. Okay, so here I just used a number 0, but you can put any value here. It can be a string, or it can be a number, or it can be a boolean value. It can be any type. So now what will happen if you initialize subject with a value, right? So here I am subscribing it to this subject, and I'll basically get this value 0 here immediately. Okay, so whenever I initialize, right, so it will keep a value always, a default value, and whenever you subscribe, first value you get is this value. Okay, and after that I started sending 1, and I started sending value 2, and then after 0, first it printed 0, right, whenever it's subscribed, and now it will start printing 1 and 2. So at the end of this line, the output is 0, 1, 2. Okay, 0 is coming from here, from the initial value, and I have another subscriber here. Okay, so this is second subscriber. Now here what will happen, it will print last value. Okay, so because it will always have a value, whenever a new subscriber comes, then it will get the last value or the initialized value. Okay, so basically it will always keep a value. It will start with one value, so in this case 0, and after that you can start sending some messages. So whatever last value you send, right, it will basically keep in the subject, and any new subscriber subscribing, they'll get the last value. Okay, so now you can send 3 here, and now the 3 will be printed again, and here also 3 will be printed. So the output of this subject is 0, 1, 2, and 3, and output of this subject is 2 and 3. Okay, so that is the main difference between a subject and behavior subject. So let's see what happens to subject, right? So subject, we didn't initialize any value here, and whenever you subscribe, you will not get any value. It will wait. Okay, so it will not print anything. It will just wait. It will subscribe and it will wait. So when you send first value, and then it will start printing it. Okay, when you send 1, it will print 1. When you send 2, it will print 2. But whereas behavior subject, it will always have a default value. So initially we initialize with some value, and after that it will, you can send as many values you want, but it will always remember the last value. Okay, so it will always remember last value. If any new subscriber coming to the scene, then it will try to get that last value automatically. Okay, it doesn't wait. It will just print whatever last value is there. But whereas the normal subject, it will not print. It will just wait because there is no default value, or it will not remember any last value also. Okay, that is the main difference between subject and behavior subject. And we have replay subject. Another subject is called replay subject. So replay subject is the same as behavior subject, but instead of initializing instead of taking the initial value, it will take number of values to remember. Okay, here we are initializing by value itself, but here we are initializing with the number of values to be remembered. Okay, so now I subscribed here and it will not print anything. Okay, just like normal subject, it will not print anything. But here, when you start sending these values, right, one will be printed and you can send two will be printed, you can send three will be printed, and then new subscriber comes into picture. There is another subscriber coming to the picture. Now what will happen? In case of behavior subject, it will print the last value, but in case of replay subject, it will print last this many number of values. Okay, last that many numbers are 2 and 3. So now it will print 2 and 3. Okay, and now you send 4 and 4 will be printed here and 4 will be printed, and you send 5 and 5 will be printed and 5 will be printed, and assume that there is one more subscriber comes after this line. Okay, line number this line. So it will print 4 and 5 because it will always remember last two values. Okay, whereas this will remember last single value. And also that number is configurable. If you say 5 here, okay, you're telling the subject framework that remember 5 values. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5. So whenever new subscriber comes, it will try to send all these values. Okay, but whenever first it's subscribed, right, it will not print anything. But whenever new subscriber comes, it will try to print last two values. It will not print here because it doesn't have any values here. Okay, we didn't send any values to that subject. Okay, so that's the reason it will not print anything. But once you send some values and that values will be saved here, last two values will be saved. If you say 5 values will be saved. If you say 1 value will be saved. Okay, and then when new subscriber comes, we'll try to print that many number of values. Okay, and we have async subject. Okay, so async subject is again it is a little different. So what it will do is you create a subject here and then you subscribe it, nothing will happen, and then you start sending it 1 2 3 4 and nothing will happen, and we are sending the data, but basically nothing will happen. And here we have another subscriber. Okay, still nothing will happen, and we are sending 5, still nothing will happen. When you call the complete method, that time it will send the last value you sent into it. Okay, so it will print 5 here and it will print 5. Okay, sync subject only send the latest value to subscribers when it's completed. Okay, when it's completed, it will send latest value to the subscribers. Okay, so now you understood the difference. So the normal subject will not have any initial value or any param value to number of values to be remembered. But whereas subject has an initial value, you have to initialize behavior subject with some default value, and then when you start sending data, it will always remember last value, single value, and whenever a new subscriber comes, then it'll basically gets the last value, latest value. And replace subject is if you want more than one value, then instead of behavior subject, you go for this subject, replace subject, and you mention how many number of values to be remembered or kept in the buffer. And async subject is, so basically it will wait till the subject is completed, and once it is completed, it will send the last value. Till that time, it will not do anything. It will wait. Okay. So after this one, let's say after this line, if you write subject dot complete, then it will immediately send 1 here and 1 here. but we don't have that complete method call here. So that's the reason it will not do, even though we are sending data to that subject until this step. Okay. So let's execute examples. But before that, do you have any queries here?
No, sir. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code and let me. Okay, we already have this example, but let me remove it. Okay, so the app component, let me remove this as well, and let me remove this method. Remove all these. In the app component, we have to define behavior subject. Okay, let me call B subject. Let's mention dollar. It's a good practice. And then normal subject, we have to import it, and we have to basically create the object, right? So we have to use the new operator. Now it is created. Now what we can do is we can this dot B subject dot subscribe, and it will give us a value, and we will print that value here, console.log. What will print? We'll print that value. That's it. Now let me start sending some value into that B subject. No, this is normal subject, right? So let me call just subject. Subject dot next. So in the next, I want to send 1, 2, 3. Let me save it. So whenever we send data 1, 2, 3, it will print here. Localhost 4201. Localhost 5000. Yeah, 5001. Okay, so now it's not printing anything because we are not printing anything. But if you see here, the 1, 2 is printed. Okay, let me remove this and let me refresh the page. Okay, 1, 2, 3 is printed. So if we send another data 4, 5, 6, now both 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6 will be received by the subscriber. Okay. So now after these two lines, let me subscribe it again. Okay, this is another subscriber. Okay, this is subscriber 1 and this is subscriber 2. Okay, let me save it. And you see only 1, 2, 3 and 4 by 6 reprinted at line number 31. Okay, that line number 31 is this one, but this is not getting any value because there is no default value. The subject will not store any default value. Okay, so that is the difference. Now let me change. Let me create another subject here itself. Let's call it behavior subject, B subject, and then let me change it to behavior subject. Okay, so whenever I create behavior subject and I import it also here, but still it is saying some error, right? So why it is saying error? It is expecting an argument, but we are not sending any argument. Okay, so the argument for underscore value is not provided. So basically it is expecting an initial value here. Let me say 789. Okay, now that error is gone. Now let me take this subject and let me comment this code, and this dot b subject dot subscribe. Okay, so the subscribe will expect a function, and this function will print that value val value. Okay, now let me save it. I'm not sending any data like this. Okay, I just saved it. I'm just subscribing, and here I initialize it. Right, let's go and see. See, 789 is printed. Okay, even though we did not send that value here, because by default it will have this value stored in this subjects buffer. Okay, now let me send a value, actual value dot next. So what is the next value? Let me say 000, not 00, 1000, 1300. Let me save it. Now what will happen? It will print two values. Okay, the first, when it is subscribed, it printed the 789, that is initial value, and now we are sending 1000, so 1000 will be printed here. And now let's create another subscriber. Okay, let's create another subscriber. Now let me save it. So what it will print? It will print this value, because it will replace this value with whatever value we are sending it to this subject. Okay, so first printed by first subscriber print 789 and 1000, and second subscriber at line number 50 it printed 1000, because the 1000 is stored instead of 789 now. Okay, so now let me, instead of 1000, let me send 2000 here. Okay, now what will happen? First one will print three values, 789, 1000 and 2000 at line number 44. But second subscriber will print only last value, which is 2000. Okay, so at any given time, the behavior subject will keep a value. Okay, a single value, either the default value, or if you try to send any value, that value will be remembered. Okay, at this line it will keep this value, and at this line it will keep this value. So any new subscriber comes, it will try to send this value by default. Whereas the normal subject, unless you send data, the subscribers will not get any data. Okay, but this one, just you subscribe, the default will be coming, or the last value. Okay, so if I send 2000 3000 here, so what will happen? The first one will print all the values, 789, 1000, 2000, and right. So till 2000 it printed, and the new subscriber got into picture at line number 50, and that new subscriber will 2000, because 2000 is here, and then we are sending 3000 at line number 54. That means that both subscribers are available now, so they'll receive this value 3000, 3000. So the 3000 is printed line number 44, and this 3000 printed line number 51. Okay, so that is a behavior subject. Okay, let me comment this and let me create another subscriber. Okay, let me change this example data type also, because always we are using numbers, right? So it may not be numbers also. You can say hello initial value. Okay, let me save it. And here it is complaining because the argument type is string here, right? Earlier it was number, that way it accepted numbers, but we changed it to string, so we have to send string values. Hello initial value 1, initial value 2, it's not initial value 1, value 2, and here value last. Let's save it. Now the initial value is printed here, and we sent hello value 1, it is printed line number 44. We send hello value 2, printed at line number 44, and then the new subscriber come to the scene, and that new subscriber will print whatever last value we have at that moment. The last value is 2, and it's printed value 2 in the second one, and third value, this last value will send at the end, right? So by that time these two subscribers are active, and they both will receive this last value. Okay, so this one and this one. Now let's move on to the next subject. The next subject is replay subject. So let me say R subject, and let me remove this, and let me say new replay subject. Okay, replay subject doesn't take any initial value, so that's the reason it is complaining the string is not assignable to the type of number. Okay, so let me remove this, and let me say 2 is my number. 2 is the number of values to be stored in the buffer. Okay, now let me take this R subject, and let me, we have to use this operator because we are inside this method. R subject dot subscribe. Okay, we'll get a value, and we print that value, console dot log value. Let me save it. Let's go and see. Okay, nothing will happen because this is not an initial value. This is, we are telling replace subject number of values to be remembered, right? So to remember 2 values, but the 2 values is not yet sent to that subject. So now what we can do here, let me send these 2 values here before the subscriber. Next, let me say 1, and next value 2. Now what will happen? These 2 values will be remembered by the replay subject, and it will send the 2 values when the subscriber comes into the picture. Okay, see here, now 1 2 came. Okay, now let me basically add one more value. Let me say 3 here, 3 here. Let me save it. Now what will print? It will print 2 and 3. Okay, see, 2 and 3 it is printing, but the first value is gone. Okay, so because it will remember only 2 values, and we are sending 3 values, the first value will be gone, and it will remember last 2 values, and the 2 values will be sent here. Okay, now let's take out this 3 here, and let's send after the subscription. Okay, now it will print 1 2 3. Okay, 1 2 3, because whenever you haven't have any the subscriber, the subject doesn't have any subscribers, that values will be lost in normal case. But we are sending saying that remember last 2 values, it tries to remember the 2 values in the previous example. So that is the reason first we have to subscribe always, and then only you have to send data in any subscriber, any subjects, right? Even for the basic subject also, or behavior subject or replay subject, first you have to have a subscriber, then only you can start sending data, and that data will be received by the subscriber. If you don't have any subscriber but you still trying to send data, that data will be lost. Okay, it will not be stored anywhere, it will be lost. Now let's do one thing. Let's subscribe with another client here. This is a new subscriber. Now what will happen? the first subscriber will receive 1, 2, 3, and the second subscriber will receive last two values from here onwards. See, first three values printed by the first subscriber at line number 58, but after that, last two values are getting printed by the second subscriber. Okay, and for simplicity, let me add one more value here. Okay, now let me save it and see. 1, 2, 3 is printed by first subscriber, and 2, 3 is printed by second subscriber, because the replay subject will remember last two values, and we are sending 4, and 4 will be now received by both subscribers. Okay, now let's say another subscriber comes into the picture. Okay, now what will print? It will print last two values, 4 and 3. Okay, yeah, here it is printed 3 and 4, last two values. Okay, so this is replay subject. So any questions?
No, sir.
Is it clear or is it a bit complex?
It's clear.
Okay, cool. So the other one is async subject. Okay, let me say a subject and async subject. Okay, I imported async subject. Async subject doesn't take any params. Okay, async subject basically this dot a subject dot
Complete.
no, we cannot use complete yet, right? So we have to send some data.
After the subscriber. Okay.
Okay, let me send this data, and let me subscribe. Right, we subscribed and we're trying to print this value, and let's go and see. Nothing will happen because this data is lost. Okay, in any subject, right? So if you try to send data before subscribing, the data will be lost. So if we can put a real world example, right? So let's say there is a radio broadcast. Okay, there is a radio broadcast, and there are like list of programs: program 1, program 2, program 3, or like song 1, song 2, song 3. If you haven't switched on your radio, whatever songs played before that will be lost, right? So you will not listen, you will not get those songs again, right? So those are lost. The same way, if you try to send data before someone is subscribed, then that data will be lost. Okay, in normal scenario. So that is the reason. First, we have to switch on radio, this one, and then you have to broadcast that songs or send that songs, so whoever subscribed will listen those songs. Okay, but this is different. This is a little different. This subject is a little different, right? The async subject. So whatever example I said, it will work for all the subject, but this is little different because even though if you send data after subscriber subscribed, then it will not get printed until unless you call the complete method.
Yeah, complete. Yeah.
Perfect. So it is printing 1 now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let me send multiple values, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So let me call complete at the end. So it printed only the last value. Okay, because these are not this is not a replay subject, right, or behavior subject, so it will not remember any values sent. So it will just wait till the complete method is called. When the complete method is called, it will just give you the last result or last value. Okay, so these are the 4 types we have. So what are the 4 types? One is the normal subject, and other one is behavior subject, and the third one is replay. And then basically it will replay whatever last 2 messages, and then async subject.
Async.
Okay, so in different scenarios we use these values, but mostly we use these 2. Okay, so these 2 will not use, but maybe in some scenarios we will use, but in normal mostly the day-to-day task, right? So these 2 are enough. Okay, in interviews also they'll ask these questions because these are little tricky to understand, because most of the people don't understand unless they practice this. Okay, even if they understand also they'll forget, because these are little dry subject, right? This is not like a function call. The problem with these subjects, right? The reactive programming, these are like exactly the event driven programming kind of thing, because so you subscribe to, you're listening to the events and you're sending that events here, and that event will be received by the subscriber. In normal scenarios, this is like a method call. Okay, you create a method or like a function, and then after that you can start calling that function, right? So, but with the subjects, right? So you can basically communicate across multiple components. You can create a subject in one component, and then another component will subscribe, and you can send data in from a service. So there are like different component, but the communication will still happen. That is the beauty about these subjects. Okay. So this is one example to basically share data between the components. I think we already saw this example yesterday, right? So we created 2 components, and then we created a subject, and then we sent data from one subject, one component to other component. So this is the same example. Okay. I'll tell this example where we use this example, but I want you to practice this example, because we already tried this yesterday, right? Sharing data between multiple components. Now, what is the where we will use these subjects and observables, right? So mostly observables we use in HTTP client module. Whenever you call some backend API and you get some data, and then it'll give you data as a observable, and your component has to subscribe to that observable and get data. That is where we use observables. But whereas subjects, right? Subject where we'll use. So assume that you have a form. Okay. So let me say here. So we have a contact us form here in this side, and let me say I fill this data, and then I submit it. Okay, so whenever I submit, nothing is happening because this functionality is not completed yet. So nothing is happening. It's just that form is gone. Okay, but normal scenarios, when you submit a form, uh, it will try to show some success icon, right? Success pop-up.
Yeah.
So how it will show the success pop-up? So you can create a service in Angular, and you can have a subscription there, right? The subject, you can create a subject in that service, and from this contact us component, whenever this data is clicked, like submitted, it will basically send that data to the backend API, and backend API returns you a 200 success response, and immediately you can call that subject and send the response to that subject. Okay, you can say successful. The data sent successful, and then in some other component, notification component, you can subscribe to this subject. Okay, the notification subject, and that will receive data, and then it will show a little pop up in the UI. Okay, that is how you can basically write or like make use of the subjects. Now, what is the advantage of having this one? You can normally also in the contact us form component itself, we can show that pop-up, right? Why I have to use a different component, the notification component, and I have to have a service to store the subject and then send data. The advantage is there are many parts in a single application, right? So this is one component. But if I go to the sign up, again, this is a form. And when I click on sign up or sign up with Google, and once the successful operation, upon successful operation, what will happen? We have to show some again icon, the pop-up, right? So in that case, again, we can use that notification service and get that subject and then send data. And the data will go to the notification component and will show the pop-up. And also login functionality. We have login form also. Here also you can submit or sign in. Upon successful sign in, and we send data to the notification component and it will show. So basically we have one notification component and one notification service, but that same code is being reused everywhere in your code. In sign up, in login, and in contact us, and in every place. You are able to use the same notification component and same notification service. So that is the main advantage of these subjects and observables. Okay, so they will let you organize your code properly and then reuse most of the code return. So otherwise, what you have to do is you have to write one notification component for not component, maybe the notification logic for this contact us, and you have to write same code in here to show that pop-up, and you have to write same code here in login as well. So that is the main disadvantages. You are duplicating code everywhere. So instead of that, we can take out that the notification part and the service part, and you can put separately in some separate component or separate folder. Then that code will be reused across your application. Your application can have 10 feature modules. The 10 feature modules can have 100 forms or some 100 actions. Not only forms, right? If let's say you're deleting a student data in a student application, you have to show the student deleted successfully, and you are adding a student, and that is again we have use of the notification. So that way we'll have many places where we can reuse that same notification component. Okay, so that is the best example for the subjects. Okay, so any questions so far? Because let's close this today. We'll start the routing with a fresh mindset. Otherwise, both concepts will be entirely different. These are not related at all. So if I start
Okay.
routing, then it will be confusing for you.
Mhm.
Okay, so any questions?
Okay. No, sir. I'll just practice this weekend, whatever
Okay.
we saw this week, so that I can, as you said, we can look into the routing.
Okay, okay, sure.